Today we find two members of Auckland band Capitol Theatre in California, where they recorded their new album, A Hero's Journey, with world-renowned producer Mike Clink. How'd that happen? Watch, listen, and learn. How'd you guys get hooked up with Mike Clink and all this stuff? Give me the lowdown.
A lot of tenacity from Roy, actually, a lot of emailing.
Yeah, someone told me that American people need to be pestered very hard to get their attention. So I, we when we were writing, we got to a point where we had a few songs together, and we were feeling pretty strong about them. So we decided, let's just get the best producer we can find, and we sat down and wrote down all our favorite albums, and some of the ones that married up were like Guns N' Roses, Appetite, and some Queen albums and Nirvana and all that. So we actually had a list of three. So Butch Vig did Nirvana, Nevermind. Roy Thomas Baker did Bohemian Rhapsody, and obviously Mike did Guns N' Roses and Megadeth and all sorts of big rock acts. And this is our room service, by the way.
That's it. Let's see what you got.
We've got a chicken and avocado sandwich. Hang on, we'll just get in here. What do we got here? So there's a chicken and avocado sandwich. There's a Bloody Mary and a Sprite. Yeah, we got it all. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's quite all right.
So right, we're back. So we basically decided on Mike, and therefore it was my task to get in touch with him. So I figured out he's managed by a guy called Frank McDonough, and got in touch with him. And from there it was a lot of emails back and forth to convince him that we're a pretty serious band, because obviously there was no such thing as Capitol Theatre. Then I don't even think we had a social media page or anything, really. We just had a few demos. So told him the story, told him what our plans are for the future, and we talked a little bit about how we're writing the album and what the album's about. It's a bit of a concept album, which Adam will get into shortly. Frank basically at that point said, well, I'll get the music through to Mike, and to go from there, he'll have to be on board with the music, and he was very on board with
So did he produce or just engineer?
He produced. Yep. And we had a chat with him and on a Zoom call, and we all got on really, really well. So basically from there we just locked in the dates and made it happen. And we flew Mike to New Zealand for a week prior to going over to LA in March 2020. So we did our pre-production here in Auckland. Well, I'm not in Auckland right now, but that's where we did. And it was cool. Mike got to see a bit about our lives and obviously where we've been, growing up and making the music and things like that. So it was cool for him. And and then we got to LA on the 7th of March, started recording the album at NRG Studios, got all the drums and bass laid down, and things started getting a little bit weird with that COVID thing. And and then basically we got about 4 days worth of guitar overdubs done, which was pretty cool because we were at Slash's Snake Pit. So a pretty amazing place to be.
Yep.
And it kind of just all came crashing down. We realized we needed to get home because we just weren't sure whether the flights would keep going or not. And I think we made the right decision. But it was pretty tough for us to kind of have all that hype to get there and have it kind of turn out like it did. But in the long run, I guess it actually worked out pretty well because we got to bit by bit finish the recording out of Roundhead Studios in Auckland and work with Mike remotely, which was obviously quite frustrating at times for him. and us, but we got there in the end, and it just really cemented this long-term relationship with him. And here we are again 2 years later, or 2.5 years later, really, recording album 2 with him.
It sounds like a very expensive project.
Well, yeah, nothing's that cheap in life.
But when you get a guy like him on board, and you're all self-funded, right?
Yes, yep. Very fortunate to be able to do what we're doing.
All right. So you mentioned that the album is somewhat of a concept album. What is the concept?
Well, I'll just hand you over to Adam,
I'll come back in.
The lead lyricist.
My apologies, Marty, because we've just flown in from we were in Madison this morning, and then we've just flown into Palm Springs, and I haven't really had lunch, and that's why I had to get something.
Yeah, we don't want you to fade away from us.
Yeah. But yeah, so the album's obviously called A Hero's Journey, and that's based on the kind of archetypal framework that I learned about, I suppose, a couple of years ago, having looked into the works of Joseph Campbell. And so he's a professor of mythology, and his life work was all around accumulating and documenting all of the myths and legends of culture and religion. And he kind of ascertained that there's similarities in loads of the stories told throughout history. Jesus Christ, it can be anything. But the hero's archetype has a format, and so we looked at that and we're like, well, that would be pretty interesting if we wrote an album adhering to that format. So starting out with the status quo and having a hero kind of go through different parts of the journey, which is like the call to adventure, like going off on the journey, the trials and tests that the hero undergoes before some kind of absolute soul searching, and then a big ordeal to overcome.
Like having avocado stuck in your bed.
Having avocado stuck in your bed.
Like the ordeal.
Getting lunch was my own hero's journey, really.
Yeah, fair enough.
So it created a cool framework for the album. So when people actually receive the album and actually get the physical copy, they'll see the songs mapped out as per the hero's journey around the in a circle.
And I see you've made quite a few videos for several of the tunes already, and they have a political. The one I thought I'd bring up is "Forced to Fight." So tell me about the song. Tell me about making the record for the video.
Give me the force to fight. I'm a gun for hire. Through the cover of night, I'm a shining light. I'll be the first to strike. I'm a man on fire. Under the cover of night, we are burning bright.
Well, so "Forced to Fight" on the album is song 7, which is it's the kind of crescendo, the battle scene, if you will, if you're watching a movie. And yeah, in terms of the video, we actually, I think it was a little bit, if I'm looking at it retrospectively, probably a bit unfortunate that we went so political with it, because I think we got in the heat of the moment. It was right around the time of the Trump elections, and the director that we were working with, Gregor Nichols, he really wanted. I think he was probably a little bit more left leaning than. I mean, hey, Trump probably didn't do great things for America. We can all agree on that. But yeah, is it our job as musicians to step into that ring, so to speak, or literally, and play with that? Because I think the funny thing is, now that we're in America, and we've just been in the Midwest, into some states that are really pro-Trump. Suddenly we could find ourselves, walking down the street and finding some enemies if they're going to go and check out our tracks. So, getting political, I think, is tricky for bands, and I mean, yeah, it's probably. I mean, we've sometimes talked about like just maybe re-editing it slightly. but hey, it was a bit of fun, and I mean that was our first effort at a music video. And what we do set our minds to with music videos is to create theatre, to involve the theatrics, make something that's pretty colourful and brings the song out. So that everything in our minds is it has to be capital theatre. It has to be
Right.
something big and bold. So that was definitely big and bold. So.
But the name Capitol Theater even evokes a kind of political agenda of some description. So
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that was when we came up with the name. It was one of those names where you've ticked the box. It's got double meanings, and you can infer that we could say we simply want to make our rock show theatrically embellished, but also it's really we live in a capitalist world, and money is theatre, and the rich poor divide is shocking, and there's people losing their houses because they invested in Bitcoin and NFTs. It's the way money is being used is pretty darn theatrical.
right. Now, this seems like a good point to bring out the fact that your drummer, Paul, is probably the most well-known among Kiwis because of his involvement in Shortland Street, Rubicon. I remember interviewing him back in the 90s, back in the day. And
Yeah.
then he got into the papers when he made a comment about the Whammy Bar, which he kind of owns. So what do you guys, as the other two guys in the band, think about all that?
Well, I mean, he's a pretty interesting character from start to finish because, having come from a pretty, lower class upbringing, he kind of just designed his own future and went about getting onto Shortland Street, doing these things. So, and we've been mates for many years, and he's actually helped us both invest in property as well. And yeah, I mean, like I know he rubs people up the wrong way sometimes, but he underneath it all, he's actually just a really creative guy that has the ability to get shit done. And that's why Capitol Theatre has been able to expedite proceedings, and once the product was there and the music had been well recorded. Now we actually are in a position to just do the right things that any band, if they had the resource, they would do. So it's a great position for Roy and I to be in,
Right.
and we tell him when he's a dick as well.
Because I think part of the problem was he was using the words punk rock to kind of set a standard of how the people at the Whammy Bar should behave, whereas one way or the other, one hasn't got anything to do with the others, especially since he's being their landlord. So I think that was a part of the problem.
Well, I guess,
Yeah, I don't think anyone even needs to. Yeah, I mean that whole argument, kind of no comment from my point of view. But
Fair enough.
but no one, I don't think anyone really has an ability to define certain genres or I suppose scenes or moods of music, and I don't think I think it's pretty old school to even. I mean, punk or being rock.
These
what
days
is that?
it's different. Back in the day, yeah, punk totally against the system, right?
Right.
For a big part of it, or at least it's the way they wanted to make it look. So, but these days things are quite different.
Yeah. Okay. So having said that, you guys are doing a gig at the Tuning Fork, right?
Yep.
What date's
So what
that,
can we
Roy?
expect from that?
That is on the
Drum roll, please.
Oh, hang on.
Well, yeah, we're doing seven dates around the country to support the album release. So from the 15th of July through to the 6th of August, hitting Hamilton, Wellington, Palmerston North, Auckland, Mount Maunganui, Dunedin, and Christchurch.
And Auckland's on the 28th of July.
Tuning for.
Yeah.
28th of July. Yeah, so that'll be great. It's going to be good to just hopefully by the time we get out there, the album will have been out a couple of weeks. People will have been able to get their heads around it and, know the whole thing. So we will play it from start to finish as it's recorded so that, hopefully we can get that whole hero's journey feeling across.
Okay. And who do you see as your audience? Do you visualize the typical Capitol Theater guy or girl?
We don't know yet, but I mean we've been really well supported by the radio stations around the country.
Right.
The Rock and Hodaki, Bay FM Generator. There's a lot of them that have really Chaos FM. Yeah, they've all picked up what we're about and supported it. So I think I don't know. I mean we think that our music could appeal to quite a broad cross section of people, as long as they like kind of good rock music.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. Well,
right.
I mean, it's interesting because we did play a show at the Tuning Fork a little while back, sometime. It was in when we weren't in lockdowns, and it was an all ages show, and we had a couple of hundred kids there between kind of 16 and 24, 25. But then you had a couple of, there was still people of older ages there as well. But there was a really big representation of young kids who I would call them punk rockers because, well, they definitely look like almost classic steampunk. It was cool.
Oh, yeah.
It was cool. And that's what I was quite excited about that because I saw young kids appropriating that kind of identity and being part of a community and all having fun together.
All is not lost. All is not lost.
All is not lost. Well, it's just nice if you can get a scene where you go and you get to put on your cool makeup and share your tattoos and dress up and hang out with your mates who are all like-minded, then that's healthy.
Okay. Very good. All righty. Well, thank you for spending time talking to me about all this. We look forward to seeing you guys when you come back here. And in the meantime, finish up your food.
Thanks, Marty. Appreciate it, man.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.